Hello, guys. So, just to let you know, this video was recorded before the news that the Liverpool Leeds game was being postponed. In this preview, we go over the major injury crisis and the illness crisis at both clubs. So, postponement is, it's to be expected. Hopefully, this won't happen in the future or with our other game. But look into this video to see why the game was postponed and see into the Manchester City game anyway. Hope you enjoy the show. And welcome to Secure the Bag, everyone. My name is Jackson. I'm joined by Matt for another game week preview. So we've got some, it was a bit confusing over the last few game weeks with a bunch of postponements. A couple of the games we previewed were iffy. It's been confusing. And while we're a bit more confident the games we've picked for this preview will actually play, COVID has thrown a wrench into matters, as we shall see through the previews. We're feeling excited about these games upcoming, Matt. Sure, there's no big matchups, but they're interesting games.
I mean, yeah, there's no big matchups, but they are interesting games to say the least. I mean, we put a video out yesterday. If you guys haven't watched it, go watch it. We're talking about how the COVID and Omicron variant is going to take effect over on the league. So that's an interesting video to watch before this one, just to give it a bit of context. But yeah, these games, they aren't the biggest games of the game week, but they're some of the more exciting ones, and we're definitely excited to predict these games and to see the outcomes for these. So the two games that we're looking at this week are the Liverpool Leeds United game and the Man City and Leicester City game. So obviously Liverpool and Leeds United have had some history together this season, by way of where Liverpool beating them earlier this year, but also suffering a Harvey Elliott injury in that particular game at the start of the year. So something that Liverpool has not benefited from, sort of a double-edged sword. And then Man City and Leicester City. I mean, Leicester City, they're hovering mid-table. They're not doing too well, and Man City's just going to try and keep hold of that top spot they have at the moment. So yeah, let's dive right into it. Let's go into the first one, Liverpool Leeds, Jackson.
Yeah, let's hit it first. And I mean, you mentioned there Harvey Elliott's long-term injury, and as he's still going to be out of this game, he's going to be out for a long time. But if you think he's the only injury problem they've got for this game, you've got another one coming to you. I mentioned that COVID has thrown a complete wrench in the players. I mean, the Premier League is going to be meeting with players and managers who are going to be furious because of the amount of COVID concerns that are hampering these teams. And Liverpool are no exception. So I can tell you that, I mean, Harvey Elliott, a big loss for that midfield, but they're also going to be missing for this game Fabinho, Thiago, Curtis Jones, and Virgil van Dijk for this game. Fabinho, Virgil, and Thiago, I'm certain are illnesses. That seems to be the general consensus. Yeah, Curtis Jones is likely illness. There's that eye injury that might still be in play, but illness has been attached to his name as well. You'd think that would be the end of their problems, but both Divock Origi and Nat Phillips have doubts for differing reasons. And Robertson is suspended. So expect this lineup to be bizarre, to say the least. There's a lot of key players. The spine of that team is gone for this game unless things change over the next 3 days. So let's get started. Matt, the midfield's the most concerning thing. AFCON hasn't started yet. They've still got those key forwards, but it's the midfield that's missing. Now, I think we could agree that Fabinho and Thiago would be the midfielders we'd put in that midfield if we're picking the team.
Right? Oh, definitely. I mean, Naby Keita is always a good shout as well, but yeah, definitely got to have Fabinho or Thiago in there, considering how slim they are in the midfield at the moment. Yeah. Fabinho is probably one of the better options to get in.
Yeah. They would be the best shouts, but they probably don't even have a great partnership. There's no great partnerships in that Liverpool midfield right now, and injuries will only exacerbate that problem.
Yeah, that's correct.
So I think right now, like what you could expect potentially, if you had to say, the other midfielders that are currently in play that can play are Milner, Henderson.
I don't know. Henderson's probably doubtful.
No, he's got a cold, but he'll go through it. Okay. He's got a cold, but I think he'll play. I still think he will play.
So Milner, Keita, They played Morton last week in that
Yep.
central midfield position, so that could be an avenue they could go to this week. Really,
You're missing Oxlade
I was
Chamberlain.
going to say they
forget.
could play Oxlade Chamberlain there, but I don't know. With Oxlade Chamberlain, to be honest, he could play, but yeah,
his Liverpool career has been nothing special. I mean, he's had a couple moments, and he scored a goal when they beat Man City 4-3 back in 17-18. But like, otherwise, there's been no real performances from him that have been like, he's had injuries. He got knocked out for a season, I remember, a long-term injury. That was unfortunate, but he hasn't forced his way into this team.
Not yet, but he probably won't.
So, I mean, you mentioned Morton there as well. That's an interesting one because you don't have to play Morton. You know, if you've got Henderson, Keita, and Oxlade Chamberlain, you wouldn't have to play him. But is that a midfield you'd want to play? Is that a midfielder that works for you? Or Milner, if you threw Milner in?
It depends. I mean, Leeds are currently on a 3-game losing streak. They're just outside of, I guess, danger of the relegation zone. If they lose this week, then it puts them right into that cusp of falling into the relegation zone. Do you take a gamble on playing a similar midfield to what they played last week against Tottenham with Milner, Morden, and Keita? Or do you put Oxlade Chamberlain in because they don't really have that chemistry here at the moment, but they're playing a lesser team of Leeds. Surely they don't need too much chemistry to play against Leeds, who have been underperforming this season.
I think the Liverpool, if we're talking about chemistry, last season the three was Gini Wijnaldum, Henderson, and Fabinho. Keita maybe coming in, Milner coming in every now and again, but that was it. That was the trio of midfield players. They've lost one. Henderson is not great on his own. Like, he's a great leader, but not a fantastic footballer. And Fabinho's out. Yeah. So with that said, it's very difficult to pick. I mean, I'd almost would you want to play Morton if you've got those options? Would you be willing to throw Morton in if you were in Jurgen Klopp's shoes?
It for me honestly depends if Henderson's fit to play or not. That's really what it comes down to for me. If Henderson's fit to play and you can play Keita, you can play Milner, you can play Henderson, why not go for it? Because Henderson will thrive off Milner and Keita, and also having probably Jota and Mane and Salah up front, he'll be able to thrive off that a bit more than what some of the other players, like what another player in his position would. But Morden, I haven't seen too much of him. Is he more of a defensive midfielder, Jackson, or more of an attacking midfielder? Because you look at their centre back pairings at the moment. If Van Dijk's out, you're going to have Konate and Matip at the back.
And we will mention that because how you pick your midfield will definitely depend on how your defense is, right?
Exactly.
And the defense is it's questionable. When you take Van Dijk out of it,
it's god awful.
Yeah,
it's god awful because Alexander-Arnold's more of an attacking right back, and he's probably the most experienced defender in their lineup this week. He's more of an attacking right back compared to a defending right back. And then you've got either Matip or Gomez or Konate, like I said before. Robertson's out, so they're going to have to play Tsimikas in that left back position as well.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be very. It will sort of be an experience, but not really great back line.
No, it won't. And we'll see. I think if I had to predict it with Van Dijk out, it would probably be it's going to be Trent. It's going to be Tsimikas, which I'm sure fantasy Premier League fans who've had him in their team will appreciate. And it's going to be John Matip and Gomez. It's not the best back line, honestly. But Liverpool might be in luck because Leeds are in a pretty poor position themselves. You mentioned their form. Their form's pretty dreadful.
Leeds are god awful.
Yeah. I mean, do we say this is second season syndrome for Leeds? I feel like it fits into that category because, these teams often, they overachieve, and Leeds finish top half. They probably overachieved in that regard, and they just look out of pace, out of energy. They don't have the right attitude now. Those are the sort of symptoms of second season syndrome.
They obviously do. They really do. And I mean, this might just be me talking here, but I think their attack was severely worsened with Patrick Bamford not being in the team. I mean,
uh,
Bamford not being there, their sole attack is Rafinha. And yeah, I think that this second season syndrome is just hitting them hard. I think the only shining light for them so far, other than Rafinha trying to produce as much as possible, is Melisse, the goalkeeper, has saved the most amount of shots at him this season out of all the goalkeepers in the league.
Yeah,
that's pretty much the shining light. I think it's like 64.
He's a great keeper against West Ham when we beat him 2-1 down to the final minute. He was a very good keeper. He did very well. But yeah, it's a question of just like, I need to run through this injury list because it's traumatic if you're a Leeds fan. So Pascal is out at the back. Calvin Phillips is out as well. You've mentioned Patrick Bamford being out. Rodrigo is out. Shackleton is out. And Charlie Cresswell, who, if you were looking to, he played against West Ham. He's a youth. He's sort of coming into the team. He's also out, so you don't have your youth to play at the back.
That's it.
And Daniel James is a maybe. Like, I'm looking at their lineup against Manchester City, where, as you were mentioning, without Patrick Bamford and depending on someone like Rafinha, they had to play Dan James up front. They had to play him up there to try and provide some sort of attack in the same way West Ham would play Bowen when Antonio's injured. Didn't work. They got smashed 7-0. So it's bad. Llorente is also out for them. And although Junior Firpo comes back from suspension, I don't rate him. He hasn't been great for Leeds. So their actual lineup against Man City, a bunch of those players are out injured as is. So with Jan James a potential out, Bamford out, they're going to have to play this youth, Joe Gerhardt, who we know nothing. Exactly. Whether he's ready for this sort of step up is going to be interesting because I'm not sure. I think that with Leeds' injuries, Liverpool have the freedom to innovate, to shake things up, and maybe rest a couple players because of how hectic this season is going to turn out to be.
That's it. That's what I was sort of insinuating before about, sort of, if you don't really have that much chemistry in the midfield, you'll be able to get past that with this game here. Because I think the last 3 games, Leeds are on a 3-game losing streak, and they lost 4-1 to Arsenal in their last game that they played. And I think it was Rafinha scored their only goal there, and they had Martinelli, they had Emile Smith-Rowe, and they had Bukayo Saka put goals away against them as well. So relatively young players putting goals away against them. So I wouldn't be surprised if they lose by 4, like they concede 4 goals with the likes of Salah, with Mane, with Jota, in that front 3, rather than having an aging Lacazette coming at them.
Yeah, and you've got to wonder, like, this would maybe be the kind of game you'd play Divock Origi, especially with the rumours of him leaving. You'd maybe try and give him some game time here, because I think Liverpool would be wrong to let him go, especially with the fact they're going to lose Mane and Salah in the AFCON. They really want to keep him happy and convince him to stick around. Losing him would be poor. It would be really poor from Liverpool. He's a great player. I think he would follow the Danny Ings trajectory. He'd become a 20-goal a season striker at a mid-table club. He'd be very good.
Yeah.
Now
he'd go to one club like Southampton, like what Danny Ings did, play out of his skin, and then move to another club, and he'd been non-existent ever since.
Yeah.
But that's all right. With Divock Origi, produced one of Liverpool's most notable moments in the past few years. Corner taken quickly. Origi.
Yeah, and the Liverpool fans will love him because few players are willing to sit on a bench and do what's needed when they get called up on. But so they can't play him for this game, so that leaves Jota, Firmino, Salah, Mane. Doesn't make sense to rest Mane or Salah with AFCON coming. You want to use them as many games as possible before that comes into play. So that leaves you actually with the decision to either play Jota or Firmino. This game you played Firmino.
Yeah, I was just about to say you played Jota in the last 2 games, and I'm pretty sure in the last 2 games he's had open or relatively open net, so no goalkeeper in there, and he's had defenders in the goals, and defenders have deflected the ball. He's missed the goal as well. So giving Firmino a run wouldn't be that bad of an option for this game.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't respect Firmino these days, but he's still a good player. He goes a little deeper, and I think he'll be good for linking up with Salah and Mane until you bring in some new blood. With that being said, expect Liverpool to make attacking signings in January. I really don't see how they can compete otherwise for the title. With Chelsea out of the title race, Liverpool have to...
Chelsea aren't out of the title race, mate. Chelsea aren't out of the title race.
You tell yourself that. I don't want to break the delusion, but
don't mention that, mate.
Liverpool need attacking signings to keep in it the same way Chelsea are probably going to have to make signings to keep in it.
Oh, yeah, we definitely have to.
So with that, I mean, I know that Chelsea, Alonso wants to go. I know that
Rudiger wants to go.
Azpilicueta's asked his agent to set up a move for him. I know Rudiger is this shifty. You want a defensive reinforcement now, personally. And the sales situation's pretty tragic as well. Something needs to be done there because your midfield is letting you down. Even the attack. I mean, there's deficiencies all over the pitch for Chelsea, but Liverpool will be the same.
This isn't a Chelsea conversation, mate.
Yeah, but it applies the same to Liverpool.
Yeah. Okay.
Unlike Man City, which is everything's sort of holding on. The rotation's working. They're just sort of moving along
for now.
But cracks have very clearly emerged in both Liverpool and Chelsea squad. Chelsea's things are just not coming together. They've got the players, but they're not connecting. Liverpool injuries and AFCON could definitely kill their season very quickly. So they're going to need to get some reinforcements in January, the same way Chelsea will. I don't think Manchester City need them, but I definitely see Liverpool going for them, especially in the attacking field, even though right now it's the defensive and midfield positions we're talking about as problems because of illness and injury.
That's it.
But the attacking over the season will be what determines whether Liverpool, because of that month where they're going to lose Salah and Mane. But I think despite the problems that Liverpool face, which will be brought up by January signings and, of course, more illnesses to come, I'm sure, Leeds are in a worse off position. They look more tired. Bielsa doesn't know what to do, whether to play more defensively or really go for the attack. In both cases, they get pumped. Yeah. And with defensive injuries and attacking injuries, I think he's lost. I think any manager would be in trouble in this situation. So I'm going to say that along the lines of what you said about them getting beaten 4-0, I'm going to say this is a Liverpool victory 3-1. I'm going to say that we're going to see Salah, Mane, Firmino link up. We're going to see Leeds, someone in that back line of Leeds, Ayling, he's going to lose possession. He's going to be taken. And on the counter-attack, we're going to see Mane take a shot because he's selfish. We're going to see him miss that shot. The goalkeeper saved it. And Salah score on the rebound.
Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah. All right. With that said, let's get on to the second game that we have. Matt, take us away on Manchester City's game against Leicester City.
Awesome. So, as Jackson just mentioned, Man City versus Leicester City at the Etihad. Manchester City home ground advantage. We've got some injuries for some of the teams. I mean, Leicester's had an injury-stricken team since the beginning of the season as well. They had the guys like Wesley Fofana out with a fibula fracture, and he's been out since the 4th of August. He's missed 28 games already. Manchester City, they've had Ferran Torres out with a fractured foot since the 10th of October. So he's missed 16 games so far. But a little bit of news on the Ferran Torres. He's just signed to Barcelona this morning, according to Fabrizio Romano on Twitter. So he signed a 55 million euro contract with 10 million euro additions to Man City, and that's a 5-year deal. So he's expected to have his medical and his contract signing tomorrow in Barcelona.
There you go. Yeah.
Other than that, Manchester City's injury list is really suspension and eligibility, which we don't need to go into those two. I'm pretty sure everyone knows who they are. Leicester City, They have a Mendy with a groin injury, and Pereira's had a hamstring injury, but he was on the bench last game, so he might be able to come into this game, or he might be substituted into this game, going in through further into the game. Okay, so my predicted lineups for both teams, let's go to Man City first, right, Jackson? The home team. I reckon they're going to play a 4-3-3, all right? Just a standard 4-3-3 they normally play. Obviously, Edison's going to be in goals. We're going to have Ken's Hill at the right back position. He's played right back for the last couple of weeks, and he's played pretty well there. Last week, he got a goal and an assist at right back. So I think they're going to play him there again. They'll have their two centre-back pairings at the moment being Diaz and Laporte. And they'll get Alexander Zinchenko coming down the left side. Okay. Here's where it gets a bit trickier. So the midfield, as we know, is one of the hardest positions, or one of the hardest areas in Manchester City's team to sort of decipher who's going to be there because of how many options they have.
Yeah.
So I reckon they're going to do two midfielders and then sort of an attacking midfielder just in front of those two guys. And I think their attacking midfielder is going to be KDB. And then the other two midfielders will be Rodri and EK Gundogan.
You don't think Bernardo Silva will play?
I do think he'll play, but I think they'll play him in the attacking line. I don't think they'll play him.
Oh, you think they're going to move him up? Oh, I don't know.
I don't know. I think they might play Silva, Jesus, and Sterling at the front.
It's not a very... I mean, midfield aside, that attacking trio doesn't particularly scare me, but it works.
It doesn't, but it
gets
work.
results.
It does work, yeah.
Like when I say Jota, Mane, Salah, that's a terrifying front three. If you tell me Sterling, Jesus, Bernardo Silva, like they're good players, but as a trio, they don't terrify. It's not like I don't see them linking up incredibly and really tearing teams apart. They're good players, but...
In terms of their other attacking players, I don't see Riyad Mahrez getting into this lineup as a starter. He might come on later into the game. I don't rate Jack Grealish's chances getting into this lineup as well. And the only other real attacking player that could possibly make his way into this lineup is Phil Foden, which he could make it towards the end of the game or towards half time. But yeah, that's sort of, I guess, the attacking three that I was going to go for.
The only I'd suggest what should be done if I was Pep was I'd replace Gundogan with Bernardo Silva, because I think Bernardo Silva plays better in the center of the park than in like a winger position, which he was at his last club, in which he wasn't particularly. He was all right, but he was a much better player for me in the midfield. And put Mahrez on. Mahrez is a great player. He should go up there.
That's exactly how they played last game.
Yeah.
That exact lineup, like I've said, other than those two additions that you've just said, is exactly how they played last game, with Bernardo Silva in that midfield position and Mahrez up front.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, I wouldn't want to play Sterling or Jesus, but until they get Harry Kane, and don't even know if Man City would be in for another winger.
So the thing with Manchester City's attack at the moment is, like, you don't have that Harry Kane there at the moment. Harry Kane's not there. Are you going to rely on Jack Grealish to get you goals? No. Jack Grealish is there to get set pieces. That's pretty much what he does. Mahrez, he got the goal last week, but he hasn't really been on to form this year. He hasn't played that much this year.
Yeah. So by the sound of it, then, do Man City not have a lot of COVID-related absences?
No, they don't. No,
really?
They don't. Yeah. And Ferran Torres was their striker that they were playing at the start of the season. He's now signed to Barcelona. So
that's a poor. Some of Man City's that's an interesting lot. I mean, I think that's a poor deal for both clubs. I think Ferran Torres he's okay, but he's not fantastic. And Barcelona shouldn't really be throwing money around like this at the moment. And Man City need to have as many forwards as they have right now. I think Man City have made a lot of poor decisions on their forward trio ever since they sold Sane. Sane. Yeah. Aguero needed to move on, but Sane was a fantastic player who I think if they would have kept him around, like Sterling has been on and off, but Sane would have been incredible. They let him go. They didn't satisfy his desire for game time, and he left. And ever since, man, and like, true, they never replaced Aguero properly either. They didn't get the striker in Harry Kane that they needed, and they didn't have a backup plan. They just hoped Harry Kane would pull through and they'd get him. So, like, I'm sure, but even then, they scored 7 goals against Leeds in their last Premier League game. So they still managed to pull out the goals. The machine is still pumping out results. Otherwise, I agree with the lineup. I think you're right to keep Jack Grealish out of that midfield. I'd replace Gundogan, Shaw, but
the thing is, it's sort of a lackluster attacking line, like attacking three for them, because Pep really stacks his midfield and plays that real weird false nine role where he doesn't really have a designated striker sometimes.
Yeah.
And I just saw that having Bernardo Silva sort of a bit more attacking than what I guess he would normally play in, because of how Bernardo Silva has been scoring in the last few weeks of the season, might give him a bit more of an advantage against a Leicester City lineup that has, Johnny Evans in their centre back role. Yeah.
So Leicester, the injuries you said actually weren't that extensive. I know Leicester were going through a terrible injury crisis a month ago. Vestergaard out, Johnny Evans suspended for a time. I know big injuries to players like Ndidi. Tielemans was out for a while.
And most of them are back now.
Most of them are back now.
Yeah. The last game that was played, Ndidi and Tielemans both played in the Premier League in their last game. They both started the game. Vestergaard, I'm not quite sure if Vestergaard will play this week. That he's not on the injury list, and he hasn't been named in the squad last week. So I'm not sure if there was a little bit of a niggle with him or what was going on. But yeah, he hasn't been in that squad the last week.
He might be a doubt for this game, but it's hard to see. I think he was never meant to come in. He was going to be depth.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Players like Fofana and Soyuncu, but Fofana being out still, he probably won't come back till a couple more months.
Yeah, probably a couple more months. I mean, he's been out since, like I said before, it was the 4th of August with a fibula fracture.
Yeah.
So,
but actually, let me check. Is this the game where Brendan Rodgers should start Patson Daka?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I believe
you
so.
Think so?
He started Patson Daka last game they played as well, and they won 4-0. But granted, that was against Newcastle. But I think they should start Patson Daka this game.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's no injuries to Vardy and Iheanacho though, are there?
Not to Vardy. Iheanacho. I have not been able to. That same thing with Iheanacho and Vestergaard. They haven't.
They're just not around.
Yeah, I haven't really seen anything about them for this game week, so I'm not sure what's going on with those two.
Okay,
but
all right.
Yeah, they could. Like last week, they played Shrewsbury Hall in their sort of their midfield as well. So this is my sort of predicted lineup from Leicester City this week. I reckon they're going to play a 4-2-3-1.
Yeah.
They're going to play obviously Schmeichel in goal. They're going to play Thomas as a left back, Soyuncu, Evans as centre back pairings, and Castagna on the right back.
Yep. Good player. Yep.
In midfield, they'll play Ndidi and Tielemans in those are the 2 midfield position, and then working up to your 3. You have Barnes, Maddison, and Lookman, and they're really high on Anthony Lookman, and then play Daka up front in that striking position. Lookman is a young player for them, but I'm not sure why they love Lookman over in Leicester City. I don't really see it, but
I don't see it either. I just remember that fluffed penalty for Fulham by Lookman against West Ham. That was tragic. He's from RB, I think. So he went to Fulham on loan. Not great. He went to Everton at some point, I thought as well. But maybe that's just my imagination. But he's an all right player. But there's a reason RB Leipzig are loaning him out, like because he's not spectacular and he needs to develop somewhere else because RB Leipzig don't have the patience for him. That being said, yeah, I'd like to see Patson start this game as well. I mean, you say it's against Newcastle, sure, but that's still good. 4-0 is a pretty good game. So I'd love to see him start this game against Manchester City, really throw him into baptism of fire and see how he performs, especially if Vardy's not injured. I think it's a real boost of confidence for Patson Daka if it's chosen when Vardy's still not injured. So looking forward to that. That would be spectacular.
That's it. Well, Vardy hasn't been injured the last couple of weeks. He's been coming off the bench for Patson Daka.
Yeah.
And even still, Patson Daka has been starting the last 2 games as well.
Yeah.
I think their last 2 games were Newcastle and Aston Villa.
Well, it's got to be remembered, this was about the same time last season that Vardy was getting a bit tired. Having started most games, he was starting to drop off, get a bit exhausted at this point and become a little bit overexerted. This was about the time Iheanacho was replacing Vardy in the squad last season. And he took on really good. He scored over 10 goals. I think it was like 13, 14 goals, something like that. It was a good performance.
That checks out,
It was a good performance by Iheanacho when Vardy was out exerted. And Patson Daka might fill that role now. Vardy exerted, replaced by Patson Daka, who might not only, cover for Vardy when he's, exhausted, but replace him, which I think is the ambition in the long term. So, Matt, that being said, it doesn't sound like, unlike the the Liverpool Leeds game, where both teams have significant weaknesses and flaws because of injuries and structures and things beyond their control. Both Manchester City and Leicester are going into this game with pretty strong teams by their own standards.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Less injuries. But Matt, how is this game going to pan out?
Oh, look, I can't see anything but a Man City win with this game, especially being at the Etihad. They've got that real vigorous advantage being at the Etihad up in Manchester. I can see Leicester with their lineup at the moment. They did lose to they did win against Newcastle 4-0, but they lost to Aston Villa the week before 2-1. I do see them putting up a bit more of a fight back by way of Harvey Barnes. It's been sort of really hitting a bit of form in the last couple of games. So hopefully we see a bit of stuff from Harvey Barnes.
He's a good player.
Hope Patson Daka really performs well in this game because that will definitely boost his confidence, like we were just mentioning. But yeah, I think maybe a 3-1 win for Man City. And in terms of one of the goals for the game, I think that Cancelo is going to come down right side, get into the box, or sort of get down onto the right side of the box, cross the ball in, and I think, let's say, KDB on the edge of the box is going to strike one into the top corner.
Fair enough. Yeah, that sounds like something KDB would do. That's fair enough.
All right. I reckon. Sorry, just to put that up, it'll come into the box. It'll get cleared out by, let's say, Soyuncu, and KDB is just going to strike it from the clearance, first time strike.
Yeah, absolutely. So no shocks predicted. One of these days we're going to have to commit to an upset. We're playing it safe. Liverpool victory, City victory.
I can if you want me to.
No, it's too late now. You've set your sails. It's too late now.
That's it.
I swear, we'll stop playing it safe one day, guys. We'll predict something absolutely wild, like a 7-0 Crystal Palace victory over Chelsea or something like that. Yeah. But until then, that's been us. So as you see, keep an eye on the games this weekend. Let us know how well we did. I think we've got a pretty good shout at these games. I think we know what we're on about. And we'll see you guys in the podcast on which will come out Monday or Tuesday. See ya.
Gotcha.